We're going to start off by adding new tracks. You click the voice button and then hit the down triangle. When you click lead vocals, switch to fun and clean, and this will give you a simple way to record. If you hit the track button, it'll show you the different tracks. And now what's happening is that you've got the metronome. You don't want that, so you'll switch that off. And you have to make one more change here to your project, and that is to change how long your recordings can be. So you hit the little plus over there and you switch it to automatic. Now it'll give you a 4 count in for the metronome. Now when you want to record a new track, what you do is you put the playhead at the end of the track that you already have, and when you hit record then it'll start recording after that track. Otherwise it'll just record over top. And you can see we have a couple of different segments. You can rename your track. I recommend this. It'll help you keep things organized. And then you can rename your projects as well. Again, this is a good idea just to keep things organized. So the project that I've just opened up and renaming now will be the fake project that I did in order to demonstrate how this works. Okay, I have a bunch of tracks that I've recorded now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on moving them around, trimming them, splitting them, and then finally doing a little bit of modulation on them so that we can have some crossfades and some ducking. I'll explain all that as we go along. So I have a whole bunch of them renamed, and you can move them over by tapping them. They'll be highlighted in yellow around, and then you can move the whole thing over. You'll also notice that there are little ends to them, and you can slide those ends over if you want to just trim them. I'm going to speed up the tape a little bit here as we move some of these tracks around. You'll notice that I have recorded multiple tracks here. The way I did that is that every time I wanted to create a new track, I just hit plus new track, but I also made sure that the other tracks were muted. That way I didn't have a whole bunch of other sounds going on when I was trying to make some recordings.
Oh, what?
All right, so
Okay, here's the garage door. Show how to edit together audio. I'm going to make up a mock story about in-law state.
You might have noticed there was a lot going on there, and the reason why is because we have 2 tracks that are going at the same time. So you want to make sure that you don't have 2 tracks right underneath each other. So you'll notice that my first track and my third track are lined up right at number 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to move that there. And what that will do is that will prevent those 2 tracks from going at the same time. Now what I want to do is I want to split this track so I can get rid of some of the talking that's in front.
And here is the car.
So that what you do is you double tap the track itself, and what that does is gives you a bunch of options. One of the options is split. You click split, and then when you find the place in your playhead that you want to split at, you just drag it down. And what that does is that creates a split. Now you can see that there are 2 different tracks there. We'll do another split here, just drag it down, and now we have 3 different elements in this track. You might notice that we have tracks right next to each other again, and so if we played this back, it would have the garage door and car door audio and the car audio running at the same time. So by clicking the headphones and garage door and car door, I can solo this particular track, and you'll notice that the other tracks are grayed out, and so that means that only the track that's in blue, all of the elements that are in that particular track, those will play, but nothing else will. So there's some audio in that track that I want to get rid of. I'll just make the splits at the proper place, and then what I can do is I can tap, highlight the section I want to delete, and then click delete, and it's gone. And so all that's left is the part of the garage door that I want. Now I just need to rearrange a couple more of these tracks, move this to the end. I think I'm going to use that as a closer. You might notice that the timeline is shrinking and expanding. You can do that just by doing a 2-finger pinch. It's all very intuitive.
Okay, here's the garage door.
So that's more audio I need to get rid of. So I can just drag the end, the handle, and by dragging it in, it will trim it at the very end there. I also wanted to get rid of an entire track, and so what I did was I just clicked on the microphone, and that gave me the option to delete. So I'm just going to take a time to listen back to some of my audio, car audio. It turns out that I didn't like it, and so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to end up deleting that. Again, just hit the microphone when the options come up, hit delete. So the more auto favorite things, gum popping kids talking track, that's the one that I want. And so I'm going to slide that over, and then when I do that I move everything else over. That's a little long, and so what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to just shorten that up a bit. Alright, now that I think I have all my clips arranged that I want them to be, what I'm going to do is I'm going to record some voiceover. So I'm going to create a new track there. It's going to be at the bottom, and I'm just going to add some commentary in there, some copy if you will.
I'm doing okay so far. I haven't fallen yet, which is good because it's like a giraffe on roller skates. It's pretty bad. Oh, my good fortune wasn't too bad.
So you might notice that the new track I just put in there was hardly audible at all. Well, there's a couple ways that you can fix this. If you look over on the side, you'll notice that there is a volume slider in the audio recorder track, and so I can turn that all the way up and we can see how that sounds.
Oh, my good fortune wasn't too bad. So I spoke too soon.
That still wasn't good enough, and so I'm going to re-record the audio so that I can do it at a louder volume and start off there. But I think the other thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to do some ducking so that the ambient track is not as loud when the voiceover is happening.
Giraffe on roller skates. It's pretty bad. But my good fortune wasn't to last. It turns out that what goes up must come down. So I spoke too soon. I did end up falling, waiting for everyone to get off the ice because the Zamboni was coming.
So that was better. It was a lot clearer and a lot louder in the mix. However, the audio recording of the ambient was still a little distracting, so what I want to do is I still want to be able to duck that a little bit. So I'm going to click that track and I'm going to tap on the automation tab, and that's going to give me new options. By clicking on the little yellow, I don't know what you would call it, looks like maybe an arm, what that's going to do is that's going to give you the opportunity to put some points in that you can use to manipulate the volume level. So by going into the upper left hand corner, clicking and holding the pencil, you can add points along the volume line. And by adding 4 points, what I can do is I can make a little U shape, and that will duck the audio.
Fallen yet. Which is good because it's like a giraffe on roller skates. It's pretty bad. But my good fortune wasn't to last. It turns out that what goes up must come down. So I spoke too soon. I did end up falling, waiting for everyone to get off the ice because the Zamboni was coming. So in order to show how to edit together audio, I'm going to make up a mock story about the family ice skating.
So I just checked my audio and I've got the tracks lined up the way that I want them to. They're still very choppy, and the track that's playing right now is way too long. I'm going to have to trim that down. But what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to add some crossfades. But I'm going to hold off on that for right now because I still need to add some more copy. And then when I add some crossfades, it'll be just like doing the ducking. So I recorded a new segment. I'm just going to move it from the ambient track up to the audio recorder track. And we'll see how that sounds.
So we all jumped into the car and went to the skating rink in Danbury, Connecticut.
One thing to try to avoid is the popping when I said skating. That's because the mic was too close to the mouth.
Alright, so in order to show how to edit together audio, I'm going to make up a mock story about the family ice skating. One of the classic things to do while on break is to take the family ice skating.
You'll notice that the sound has cut out, and the reason why is because I still have the yellow headphones on in that first track. By clicking that off, it turns the other tracks blue, and that means I'll be able to hear them all.
Skating. So we all jumped into the car and went to the skating rink in Danbury, Connecticut.
Alright, so I've got my tracks aligned and it's looking pretty good so far. The audio for the auto is still a little long, and so I can trim that down. And the other thing we have to do is we have to find the right spot in the Getting Skates track, because that also has a lot of lead time to it. So I'm going to just drag that handle over and then test and see where it is. Make sure I like it.
Than me. You can get your skates with the receipt next to it.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
You want to go local or no? Go? Do you want to go further? Yes or no? All right, stay here.
How you doing? How's it going? Good. Can I get a pair of 12s? 12?
I'll take 8.5. 8.
There you go. All right, thanks a lot. No problem.
Hi, how are you?
Alright, since I've trimmed a lot, I'm going to need to move some tracks over. You might notice that I started to expand that track instead of moving it. When you do that, there is the back arrow. It is in the upper right hand corner. It is the third icon from the right.
The first order of business, getting a pair of skates.
Slower than me.
The first order of business, getting a pair of skates.
Slower than me. You can get your skates with the receipt next to it.
Okay, thanks.
Still need to trim some of that track to try to find the right spot to come in.
The first order of business, getting a pair of skates.
Slower than me.
So you'll notice that I took the voiceover and I put it alongside the ambient. That way it sounds like I'm recording it right there, even though I did it at home. There are some other adjustments I have to make. Now I've got this huge gap in my tape, so I have to move everything over. But you'll notice that when I do that, the ducking that I did before stays where it is. So I'm going to have to redo that ducking once I move everything over. Not that big of a deal, but something you want to think about if you've got a longer project and you're doing a lot of ducking to do it all at the end. All right, let's hear how it sounds so far.
One of the classic things to do while on break is to take the family ice skating. So we all jumped into the car and went to the skating rink in Danbury, Connecticut. The first order of business?
So far, so good. Still need to shorten up that time in the car, but that would be where I would do some voiceover, giving more detail. The other thing I need to do is do some crossfading so that those transitions are a little smoother. You do that just the same way that you would do the ducking. And now we're ready to share. Alright, so I've moved ahead in the project a little bit. You can see the volume changes that I've made in order to do some crossfading and some ducking, and now I want to share it. So I'm going to go to My Songs, and then I'm going to push and hold, and one of my options is going to be to share, and it's going to give me some options. I want to make it a song, high quality is fine, and now you have some options. I'm going to try to do it to SoundCloud. It's not going to work, so I'm going to eventually do it to my Google Drive. But in case you don't have all those options, when you click the three buttons on the side where it says More, you'll notice that it gives you a whole bunch of other options that you can turn on and turn off in order to share your project.